Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Tonight, I believe we're on episode 358, if I got my counting correctly, and I want to talk a little bit about gardening. Now, there is a slight backstory to this, because Ben doesn't even know why I pulled this topic out of my butt yet. We were kind of talking about some other things that were happening around here. But long story short, I was down at the property that we talked about last year. Just last week, I think it was, walking around to see where I can start, how wet things were, and things like that. I kind of want to put a garden down there with the cost of gas going up, and I like to kind of be a little bit self-reliant. I want to put a garden in. So as I was down there walking around trying to figure out where I want to start building stuff and what my next steps are going to be for this year, I was looking around through the wood line and realizing there was a ton of wild edibles that were right there, and I was debating taking a lot of those to put in the garden. And it got me thinking, why don't more people do this? You know what I mean? Maybe it's because the information isn't out there or they don't realize how simple it can be. And that's kind of what led to what this episode here is kind of what I want to talk about. It's not going to be a super long episode, or at least it's not planned to be an episode. It's one of those food for thought episodes to get you thinking and seeing if this is maybe something you'd be interested in, because there's kind of two things I want to cover on this one in two big compartments. One is how to start up gardening, and two, where to find some of this stuff and what to look for. Because the big conception between these two things, or the big dilemma between these two things, is individually people tend to think both are difficult on their own, and putting them together, a lot of people feel like it's almost impossible. And realistically, if you just want to get into it on a basic level, it's actually really simple. You know what I mean? I think you've done some gardening in the past, haven't you, Ben? Or someone in the family
I,
did.
I have. We like, especially growing up, we all had gardens and stuff, and my grandmother had a pretty amazing one at her cabin. That's where she used to do most of her real gardening, and so they spent a lot of their summer at their cabin. And she had a vegetable garden, and she also had grew flowers and stuff for her own pleasure. Um, and we've experimented with a lot of stuff over the years, and I've seen a lot of things done. Now, for the most part, I can say we didn't grow wild edibles. And I think there's a very good reason for that, and we can discuss that.
Yep. And this is kind of
Um,
where I wanted to go with this, because you can and you can't, depending on how you do it. Anyway, you keep on rolling.
well, I mean, you have to be really careful because a lot of things that we find around now that are wild and edible aren't native. So we were camping not far from you guys, actually, and we came across an apple tree, and the apple was actually fairly edible. Like, a lot of crab apples
Yeah,
and
a lot of apples in
and
this neck of the woods. They come out really sour, real bitter, or hard, or dry, or 100
yeah.
different things go wrong with them.
So if you know anything about apples, you know that most apples are grown from cuttings and not from the seeds, and that the seed of an apple won't grow that same apple. So a Macintosh seed doesn't grow a Macintosh apple necessarily.
And I'm not super familiar with apples. Maybe you can fill in on this. Aren't most of them are genetically mutated? You know what I mean? They keep the mutations, and like you said, they use clippings to keep on reproducing the mutation they so desire, more than
Yeah.
plant them from seed.
So what they did is they bred apples until they found an apple they really like, and then you just keep growing apples from that cutting, and they'll all be the same, but they're always pollinized with another apple that's not necessarily the same. So when you get a new one, it'll be basically a new species. And this isn't true for all plants. Other plants do reproduce the way we expect them to. But apples are an example of this. So a lot of the food edible plants we find, like all edible plants at one point were wild somewhere.
Yep.
But there's really good history of this. And if you ever want to get like something to dig into an interesting rabbit hole, you can look at what a watermelon originally looked like. And a watermelon was not this big fruit, but actually a very small fruit. And it wasn't very juicy at all, but it kept breeding them until we got these bigger ones. And they're more juicy, fewer seeds. Like it's a completely different thing. And that was just done through selective breeding. Similar with carrots, the original carrots would have been a lot thinner, stringier, probably never not tasted quite the way they do now. We bred them for that particular reason. And so that's one of the challenges, obviously, like finding things that grow native, but then also Native plants tend to grow really well where they're supposed to.
And this is one of the things I was going to talk about. If you are going to be growing wild edibles, best look around where you live to see what's growing around you. A lot of these things require different soil types, and that is one of the big challenges that come with it, and why I recommend grabbing what's around you, like Ben was getting to. Some need sandier soil, some need wetter soil, some need more acidic soil, some need more basic soils. There's a lot of different stuff, and brings me to another point. A lot of people say you can't grow anything in my ground. You can't grow anything you tried. Once again, look around, see what's growing there naturally, because chances are your soil has a uniqueness to it or something specific to that area that the vegetation in that area will most likely tolerate, if not thrive in. And a prime example that got me kind of cooking this up was Labrador tea. And I know you know what this is, Ben, because it was very native to where you're from. But Lab tea, it's basically a small shrubby kind of plant that grows in wetter areas. And in the property I'm working on down there, in the back half of it, there is a lot of wetland. Or it's not really wetland, it's kind of like a marshy, swampish area, but it's the perfect conditions to grow Lab tea. And I was thinking, holy crap, all I have to do is make a path out here, and I got Lab tea on hand. And if anybody's wondering, Lab tea is just that. It is a plant you use to make teas. Excuse me, you don't necessarily have to create a garden specifically for vegetables. I know a lot of people that do like wild greeneries. You know what I mean? That's a super easy one to get into that doesn't take a whole lot of resources, because you can start growing things as easy as like plantain, dandelions, wood sorrel, most of those are looked at as weeds, you know what I mean? And they will grow pretty much anywhere. How often have you said, oh, that dandelion's growing out of the crack in my pavement? You know what I mean? They will literally grow anywhere. Super high tolerant species, but all useful. I mean, as bushcrafters, we always hear about dandelions. Every part of the plant's edible. Different times of year, some of them taste better, and this is some of the things you may want to figure out. Depending on the wild edibles that you're growing in your area, there may be better ways to prepare them than just ripping them out of the ground, throwing it in your mouth. Yeah, you may be able to get away with that, but once again, dandelions, for instance, you gotta soak those to get a lot of the bitterness out. They also make really good, like, dandelion wine. I've only ever had it once, because apparently it takes a ton of dandelions to do it, and you have to pick all the petals out and get rid of all the greens. There's a whole process to it, but it is amazing wine if you got the patience for that kind of stuff. And yeah, like your basic leafy greens, there's a bunch of stuff that grows here that you can kind of eat. But a word of caution, kind of playing both of these, much like what Ben was saying. Not only is there some indigenous and then some brought in plants and some invasive plants, there are a lot of plants that look like what you're looking for, and they may not be edible at all. And one of the big ones I'm thinking of here in Nova Scotia is mint. There is a couple different types of mint here in Nova Scotia, and almost all of them are edible, minus one. And that one actually has a chemical in it that creates a kind of paralysis in your respiratory system. And if you get enough of it into you or around you, and like it can be absorbed through the skin and stuff like that too, it can cause you a lot of respiratory distress. To the point if you have asthma and stuff like that, it can potentially be fatal. So you got to know some of this stuff too. I don't recommend you just run out into the woods, grab everything you can find, throw it in some dirt, and hopefully you can eat it. You got to do a little research on this, much like we say with everything else. A great thing to get is like one of the forest guides, and I had one sitting right here, and I don't know what I did with it. But anyway, like, oh yeah, there we go. Wild edible plants of Canada. Yeah. A book like this. And I have one that's even more specific here to the Atlantic province. I know you got this one too, don't you, Ben?
Probably. I have a lot of those books.
And these are a great resource, but the best thing you can do, find somebody that knows and learn from show and tell. It is kind of the best way to go about this stuff if you have that option available to you. I know someone that Ben and I have both talked to, we kind of know, have dealt with. People like Cliff, you know who I mean when I say Cliff Serpentine, I'm not sure how he says his last name. But anyway, he's kind of like a wild forager from this area. He does do classes and stuff like that. And frankly, I've taken his class, and if he ever puts another one up, I'm probably going to take it again just because of how much I forgot from the first one. You know what I mean? Because that man just walks along and he'll just point at stuff, tell you all these things that you can eat, and you're trying to frantically take notes, and if you're lucky, you grab about 25% of it. You know what I mean? But once again, you don't have to look at it just for edible plants. There are, well, I guess you could have edible plants, you could have teas, you can have herbs and chives, and then you can have medicinal plants or mushrooms. You can actually cultivate mushrooms at home too. You know what I mean? Providing, once again, you have the conditions if you want to grow them outside, or you can get like indoor mushroom growing things. And I know Steve, who just happened to join on the Drifting Spore. Welcome, Steve. He's a guy that deals with a lot of fungus and stuff like that. Mushrooms, making, like tinctures and teas and stuff like that. And he would be a great guy to jump over to his channel and look at some of the stuff because he does talk about it from time to time.
Isn't it ironic? Such a fun guy likes fungi.
You have been waiting for that joke for how long, Ben?
Years.
Ever since Steve came on the channel, we've been looking for a reason to use that. Hey, Steve, welcome up. We also have Andrew, Eric, RMS Shoots. We got a few folks join us there in the comments, and thanks for joining us in. And there are some comments there. RM Shoots was thinking about the topic for tonight. Missed the growing season. You missed the early growing season. And here's the thing. A lot of this stuff, there is different seasons for it. And just because you missed the early grow season doesn't mean you can't throw something in that's fast growing or fall harvesting. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I got my stuff sprouting in the window out there. I'm trying to grow a few things. We're going to put a small garden in the backyard and try to grow, straight up true vegetables. We're going to play around with some things. I'm going to try doing potato towers and different plots, and I'm learning at the same time because I know enough about gardening to be dangerous, but not enough to be good. My grandparents always had gardens. My parents had gardens. We have grown a couple gardens, but basic vegetables, and we're still doing basic vegetables. But now we're going to start trying to do ideas. And that's the other fun beauty of this. There's a lot of room for experimentation. You can find what works for you. Just because you don't have a backyard, tons of people grow out of 5-gallon buckets and garden planters and stuff like that they put on decks or even just on a window edge. How many, you live in the middle of a city area, how many garden bins do you see like hanging off railings or in windowsills and stuff like that? I can guarantee it's not zero.
I don't see a lot, honestly, but yes, I'm sure there's more than I see even. But yeah, there's lots of options out there. Towers and hanging bags, especially things like tomatoes, are really easy to grow in almost anywhere. A plant, and I looked this one up before the show, a plant that I do know a lot of people have an alarming amount of success with that is considered native to the area is raspberries.
Yeah.
And raspberries are extremely easy to cultivate and grow. And honestly, more often than not, tend up growing by accident. But they're very hardy. They're very good in the area, and you can grow them. And they're similar relatives that may not be actually native, but out here where I'm to, blackberries and raspberries are super common everywhere. It is a weed here. And
Yeah.
I've been told that some of them are considered invasive the way they're growing here, like they weren't supposed to be here. But that's something we could look into more. I'm not going to say, don't go around Ben saying this says it's not native to this location. But I've been told it's often considered invasive in a lot of spots where it does grow. But that's one thing you can tend to have good luck with. Also, like well-maintained piece of property like you have, and that already has edible things growing on it, just cultivating that a little bit so that they maintain or maybe expand a little bit means you'll always have some stuff that you can harvest. But trying to force it to grow like through your whole property and become a monoculture is probably not your goal with this particular
No.
one.
And that's the thing with gardening in general for people that are wondering. You do have to have some diversity. The diversity will attract a lot of good symbiotic creatures to your garden, proper bugs and stuff like that, butterflies, bees. The diversity is good for pollination because certain plants are going to put off more pollen than others, but they'll come in for the rich flowers, see the other ones, move into them. You do need a little bit of variety in there. And you know what? If you want to get really far into it, there's a lot of complementing crops that you can plant together. Meaning you put two crops together, they do better than they would independently, or they protect each other. And I know there's a couple like cucumbers and corn or something like that. And this is where I'm a little lacking, but you can completely find this stuff pretty easy.
Yeah, I think corns, peas, and something else has been known to do really well. And the peas climb up the corn, And there's another one. There's somebody told me one has the Twisted Sisters or something is a name on it. But it's
Yeah.
3 plants that grow together in the same location. There's some varieties of how that's done in areas. There's been some really interesting um, experimenting. I heard of a guy in Japan years ago, and he used to take all the seeds of the plants he was really interested in, and he mixed them up together, and then he would take balls of clay or mud and just put a whole bunch in them, and then he threw let them dry, and he would go onto his property and just threw them out randomly.
Hmm.
So rather than like most people when they're planting their garden, you clear a piece of land and you put rows and you plant just what you want and you try to protect it. He just let everything grow where it wanted to, when it wanted to, but helped it along by planting the things he wanted in the areas he wanted it. And if they grew, great. And if they didn't, then that wasn't the spot for them. Uh, and he actually, like the experiment, I did some research on that over the years. That experiment, he produced more harvest from his little plot of land than people that did the monoculture thing, right? Like that stripped down the land and tried to just grow carrots or beets or potatoes, for example. But he ended up with like berries and root vegetables, and it was a little bit more work to harvest. Doesn't work well for, how do you put it, commercial harvesting. So if you're trying to harvest and sell and make money, this is going to be a harder method. But if it's just for your own local plot and you don't mind going out and picking a handful of different things in different ways, you can get a lot more out of your little plot of land, and it's going to be healthier for the land. Because everything is growing where it's supposed to, and it helps keep the land fertile. It keeps there's some plants that fix more nitrogen in the soil that helps other things grow. There's things that actually add to the soil rather than just strip it out, which a lot of plants can basically consume all the nutrients in land.
And like you were saying with monoculture, that is a real problem. I know like cornfields and stuff like that. I think you can grow for 2 years, then you have to have a third year where you got to grow something else. I know power beans or power beets are a big thing in this area. And that's literally just to replenish the land because it puts something into the soil the corn takes out. Once again, I'm not a farmer, not a professional gardener. All I want to get people thinking about is if you want to try your fingers in gardening, there's a lot of easy ways to get into it. You don't have to get into it for a lot of money, nor do you have to go out and buy a whole bunch of expensive seeds. Because trust me, I just did the seed purchasing thing, and you can get really deep into it without really knowing how deep you got into it. Coming from personal experience on this one. By the way, if anybody needs seeds, I got a lot of them. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's just out there in the wild that people call weeds that you can take home, grow it, and you can use it for stuff. Like I said, we talked about dandelion, chickweed's another common one, plantain, lamb's quarter, or wild spinach, whatever you want to call it. As Ben said, you can get different berry plants. So raspberries, blackberries, elderberries, blueberries, they all grow in this area. Cranberries, cloudberries are good too. I know mulberries were talked about over in the comments here. I don't think they grow so well here in my climate. Maybe they do in your side, Ben. I'm not sure. You guys' weather is a little bit more warm than mine. But these, once again, once they grow, they come back every year. You don't have to replant them. Basically, once you get them going and they start producing fruit, you can give them just a little bit of tending here and there, and you will constantly have some food. Or if you want to try fruiting plant or fruit trees is what I was trying to get out. Apples being basically notoriously the hardest one to grow because they are all goofy. But there's a lot of other easier ones to grow out there. And once again, look to your area, see what grows easy there. Don't just go, oh, hey, I want a banana tree, so I'm going to try and grow a banana tree. You may not have the climate for it. Or maybe you got to take it inside and you got to do some special circumstances, and that's where you can get into some, serious money. For what I'm looking to do here this year, I'm looking to grow the easiest stuff with the highest yields. I want to see what I can make a bunch of vegetables with very little work, and then I'll start adding in all my specialties. So I'm growing a lot of leafy greens. You know what I mean? You throw the spinach, kale, and lettuce mix in. It grows up. As long as you leave a little bit sticking up, you can continuously trim that once it starts producing. And you got greens all year. Like, it's not unrealistic to go out, trim enough to make a salad, and the next time you want a salad in a day or two, you can go back out and get a little bit more, providing your patch is big enough. And there's a calculator you can use to cram that out and figure out how much you need per person on how much you're eating. And I drove myself nuts going down those calculators, and I have calculations of my own. But realistically, you don't have to get that deep. You know what I mean? If you want to go simple for medicinal uses, because I am going to try and do some of this too. There's things like goldenrod, which commonly gets called a weed or blamed for a lot of allergies, but it's great for anti-inflammatory. And believe it or not, it actually helps seasonal allergies. It doesn't really make them worse. Yarrow, so wound care, fever support, stuff like that. It was a common medicine that was used before a lot of the common, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Manufactured? Not
Mm.
manufactured, pharmaceuticals or whatever that we have nowadays. Stinging nettle, that stuff's everywhere. Highly nutritious. You
Yeah.
can eat it. Plus, it's anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you, buddy.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like teas or medicines or food or just chives. Being able to go out, and this is something we grow constantly, is like onion greens and parsley. You know what I mean? We love having that fresh. Walk out to the hanging baskets, trim some off, throw it in the food. It's always there, and we never really have to run out. Um, and like I said, if you're not going to throw a whole lot of money at it, or you don't want to throw a whole lot of money at it because it's, therefore not available, or you just don't want to sink that much into it, you can get plants that come back every year, which is also what I'm going to do a little experimenting with during this run. I have rhubarb that is freaky out back. Like 9 times out of 10, rhubarb grows really early. You get one good harvest and then it kind of goes away for the year. I got rhubarb
All right.
What's that?
We never had that problem. Rhubarb is something we harvested a lot.
I've had people come back. Like I harvest my rhubarb 6, 7 times a year. And it's freaky big. Like I've seen the stalks as big as my wrist. Like it grows super freaky big out back. And the neighbors all come to me because they're like, yeah, ours dies after maybe 1, 2 if we're lucky harvests, and then it's done for the year. There's snow on the ground and I'm still growing rhubarb. Like my rhubarb is this tall out back now and there's still frost on the ground. It is.
So is it well shaded?
Very well shaded.
Yeah, a lot of people make the mistake of letting the rhubarb see the sun.
Yeah.
And rhubarb, if it sees the sun, grows really big leaves and really poor stalks. And the leaves are not the goal.
No, and that's the thing. The leaves back here, sometimes they'll get big, sometimes they won't. Like later in the summer when the sun moves up more centrally, that's when it starts to dwindle off until the fall runs around. Saw the first colt's foot here today. And zucchini. Zucchini is great for planting and getting a high yield. Problem is you can't preserve it too well unless you cook it into something. Once again, not to tip the hat too much, a lot of these vegetables that I'm going to be growing here, providing they grow, big if, I want to try doing some preservation techniques from pickling, dehydrating, potentially freeze drying. I have a line on one of those. And a couple other ways that I'm going to try and preserve some of the stuff. And much like the bushcrafting and camping and stuff that we talk about, I'm trying to get a little bit more self-reliant on my own stuff. Not crazy level, you know what I mean? But I want to start augmenting what we buy because I'm realizing and Ben can appreciate this, with a growing daughter and two full adults and 2 dogs, you go through a ton of groceries. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And realistically, like no word of a lie, folks, I don't mind throwing some numbers out there. Mel and I spend about $400 every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? That's a lot on groceries. Lily has a very specific diet because of the sensory issues and stuff like that. So I'm planning to grow a lot of stuff that, hopefully she will eat. Lily has a tendency, if she helps grow and harvest something, she will eat it because she knew she was a part of it. And that is another big project that's going on with this garden. If we can get her excited into it, see the growth, we're hoping that it's going to expose her to a whole bunch of new vegetables. Because as some folks may know, and my wife is a better person to explain this, and it's kind of off topic, people with on the neurodivergent scale tend to have sensory issues where they don't like specific textures, and they get very routinely into what they eat and what they do, and it's really hard to get them out of those routines unless you can get them invested into it a little bit, which, like I said, is kind of one of the hidden goals on this, is to hopefully get Lily eating a broader variety of vegetables, because right now it's basically broccoli, cauliflower, and zucchini. Like that's basically exclusively what she eats as a vegetable, which is good, but it could be better. You know what I mean? So we're hoping to get some stuff in there. But yeah, and maybe that's a good reason for you folks to look into gardening. One of my core beliefs is you don't necessarily have to grow all your food, but everybody should at least know how to grow themselves augmented food. You know what I mean? Something you can use to offset your grocery costs, or grow something that you find that you really love but it's hard to find in the stores, which is kind of what we're running into for some of the vegetables that Lily likes. Uh, so one of the fruit trees I'm gonna try and grow, which I know doesn't grow in this climate, and I'm still trying to figure this one out, dragon fruit. You know what I mean? Like, it's not for this climate at all, but I'm gonna try and figure out how to grow this thing. Lily likes dragon fruit, so we're gonna try and incorporate some of that. And it is a fun thing to do with kids. Also, the free labor's nice.
So would that be something you'd have to grow inside though, like in a small
That's what I'm
greenhouse?
expecting, is I'm going to have to grow it inside. So the sunroom that's directly beside my office here, I think I'm going to convert it into a bit of a greenhouse area so I can keep it out there for the majority of the year. And then once it actually drops below its thermal limit, I'll move it inside. And it's probably going to end up in here with me in the office in the corner in probably a grow tent. Anyway, that's a whole other project aside from the vegetables that I'm trying to grow. And the other thing is, I'm hoping that I can get Lily interested in seeing some of the wild edibles that we have here in the area and maybe just build her self reliance. You know what I mean? If her dad is showing her what she can walk along on a trail and pick up and eat, a lot of kids like that. They find it cool, they find it interesting. Once again, wood sorrel is one I keep throwing out there because it has a slightly lemony taste and kids tend to love it. Don't ask me why. It's always been a big hit on all the nature courses I've always done. You walk by and you go, oh, there's wood sorrel. And you throw some in your mouth and they all look at you in amazement and you're like, here, try it. It tastes a little bit zesty. And they eat it and they absolutely love it. And it's a good one because there's not a whole lot of stuff that looks like it that can hurt them. Might be bitter, but it generally won't hurt them. But yeah, apparently I still got 30 minutes out of this and I tried to keep it condensed as possible. I just want to get folks thinking. It's not as hard as you need to get into gardening. You can do it from your deck. You can do it from inside your house. You don't have to grow this massive hardy garden. You can limit it down to a couple things that you like. Keep your skills alive, gives you skills that you can take to grow other stuff if need be. And you can find a lot of the stuff literally walking around your house. Like I said, sorrel, we grow it in the hanging pots. Mel buys hanging plants every year. They're usually annuals, which means they die at the end of the year. I go across, cut all those stems off, leave the hanging pots alone. Here shortly, there's probably going to be wood sorrel coming up because that stuff tends to take over every kind of hanging plant here. No idea why, but we'll eat it for the rest of the summer. We grow a little garlic chive in there, green onions, herbs, stuff like that, and they're all just in hanging pots that Mel grew last year. We
Yeah.
reused them, upcycled them. If you really want to get into gardening in your backyard and don't have a lot of budget, look up lazy gardening. That's kind of what I'm going with. It's a cross between lazy gardening and expensive gardening. But I'm going to combine a few ideas, see what works. I'm really interested to see what works the best. I'm not going to lie, I have a little bit of a lag up. The person that used to own this building 2 owners ago before us, not the people we bought it from, but the people before that, they were a botanist couple, and out back is already completely set up for growing gardens. Like, when we seen pictures of this place back when they owned it, out back looked like a park you'd see in New York. Like, you know what I mean? It is amazing what they had out there. And it all got tore down when the people that we bought it because they wanted a backyard that they never used. So I'm slowly trying to turn that back into a garden because we don't really use our backyard. It's wasted space. We do everything on the side yard or the front yard. So let's reclaim that space. Because Mel already had it fenced in for her business when she was running that. Now that that's done and she's moved on, I have this prime area already fenced in from deer, already set up for growing massive amounts of flowers. At least we're going to see how it does with vegetables. So why not? And like I said, everybody should be able to grow at least a little food. You don't necessarily have to, but I firmly believe you should be able to.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on that, Ben? I kind of railroaded this whole thing, buddy, and I apologize for that.
That's good. Like I said, there's definitely some things you can get out there and play with, and any new hobby is a good one for sure. Something you may want to look into is vertical gardens, if you want to maximize space. So there's things like that. There's quite a few ones using sewer pipes and cutting holes in the sides, and you can get things to grow higher and you gain more for your square footage. But other than that, yeah, I mean, there's lots of options. The interesting thing with apples that we didn't talk about is you can actually grow multiple apples on the same tree.
Yes,
Like
you can
multiple
graft them together.
species. Yes. So if you get into grafting, you can get in some pretty weird and wild things too.
And this was at Canadian Tire, one of the local big box marts here for those not in Canada. They had a multi-fruit tree that you could buy, and I think it was like apples, plums, and some citrus fruit all growing off the same tree because it was all
Oh yeah,
grafted together. Fairly big tree, and I mean, you're paying $200 for this tree, don't get me wrong. But bang, you got 3 trees in the area of one tree. You know what I mean?
yeah. My neighbor used to have a 5 apple tree. And so it was supposed to be growing like Granny Smiths, Macintosh, Cortlands. There's a bunch of apples that came off of that. And we did see them bloom. Like it did happen. Like we seen and that was only 3 or 4 years he had that before we left. So I'm sure it's much better now. Or I assume it is, as long as anyone took care of it since
I was
then.
going to say apples, although everybody tries to jump right to an apple tree, apples are notoriously one of the hardest trees to grow fruit on. The tree itself grows really well, but the conditions to make good apples, they don't come around often. I mean, we got an awesome apple tree in the backyard here that when it grows, we get nice big Honeycrisp apples. And Honeycrisp, generally, you can't find around here. But you get one season at a 7 where the apples are actually edible. You know what I mean? If you just leave it alone, you don't do anything to it. But like I
Yeah.
said, there's other fruit trees that are super easy to grow. Lemons, for one. You can grow a lemon tree
Oh, yeah?
that's 3 feet tall and it'll have lemons on it.
Wow. Very good.
Anyway, yeah, that's my food for thought. Oh, one last fact, just because I learned it. Do you know that all bananas are basically clones of one species? So if there is a disease that comes along that hurts bananas, we will basically be without bananas.
So do you know that we're not on the first banana?
No, whatever we're eating now is some mutation that's been bastardized through many generations.
I can't remember what the previous one. It was a better banana by most accounts, but we have the Cavendish, I think it's called.
Yeah, I think that's
But
what it is.
But the one before it was supposedly tasted better. And there is still a couple of plants alive apparently that can produce that one. But most of them got the same blight, and it wipes the majority of the crop out. And that is the same risk we run with the current one. And if that gets wiped out, they'll have to go with noon. But I think a banana is also technically not even a tree. It's a herb or something.
I don't know. I know all bananas are slightly radioactive.
Sweet. All the reason to eat more of them.
They're good for you. It's slight radioactivity. Anyway, folks, I didn't see a whole lot come up more from the comments there, but I am going to say thanks for everybody that joined us. We got Eric, Andrew, RM. We had Steve. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone. Thanks, folks, for joining us. Love your input there and the laughing at the dad jokes. Hopefully you folks get some gardens in that want to do it. And if you've been sitting on the fence, it's a good year to start because the cost of gas is probably driving everybody insane. And that's only going to drive the price of everything else up. So maybe it's a good time to get into it. Maybe it's just a good time to start researching it, but at least look into it, see what you think. It's not terribly expensive to get into, and it's kind of fun and rewarding at the end of the day when you eat something that you made with your own 2 hands and keep yourself sustained. Which is why it tastes nothing like a banana. Apparently, the crabby banana candy you get from the machine is based on the old banana. Oh, crappy, not crabby, crappy. There's a little jaunt from RM shoots, which is why it tastes nothing like a banana. Fair enough. All right, folks.
Actually,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I had wild grapes, or not wild grapes, like natural grapes. My neighbor grew those on a vine, and it was the first time I'd ever had a grape that tasted like the grape juice, like everything else.
Seriously?
Yeah. And when you bit into it, not like the grapes you buy at the grocery store it actually felt like cotton balls were in the side of it. So when you bit it, it was very fibrous.
Weird.
It tasted great, but it had a totally different texture. Awesome probably for wines and stuff, and the taste is good, but the texture was a little off-putting at first. I liked it. I'd still eat it today. If somebody brought me a bunch, I'd eat them. But yeah, you can tell the fiber in it is much higher.
Cool. I'll tell you a little story after we're off air because it's not appropriate for on air.
Get out there, have fun. Happy gardening.
Night, folks. We'll see you next week.